Good morning, everybody. Well, before I go into this long video, you might want to get yourself a pen and paper. I also want this on public record as for happening now because it's one of the reasons I haven't, you know, kept it to myself because I think it's important for everybody. Another thing I'll say is I do not know the definite answer of what's going on and what's going down or what will happen eventually. And anyone who says they do is a monumental bullshitter and just ignore them. This is not for me to give to the world. I'm having these insights concurrent with other people at the moment regarding this bizarre real life Doctor Who episode we're living in surrounding this COVID-19 so called pandemic. Now, there's a lot in this that's coming up, and I absolutely agree that it's all over the shop. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not like a flat earther. I don't think I can challenge scientists because I don't have the education or the desire to challenge science. I don't come from an Abrahamic mindset where I believe that there's an end time or a revelation or some great event about to be unfolding. But I do believe that human consciousness goes through enormous cycles. And being a pagan, I totally agree with the ideas of things like the Kali Yugas and the Backtons of the Mayan world, that human consciousness will go through a shift, not necessarily an upgrade. That sounds also, again, kind of Abrahamic, that we will be judged by God and stuff like that and brought to heaven. I would see this is the problem. The Abrahamic consciousness has damaged a lot of esoteric insights and esoteric thinking to the point where everyone kind of believes in a kind of a revelations type event is coming where something amazing will happen on one day. It could, but I doubt it very much because evolutionary changes, whether they're biological, personal, physical, mental, psychological, don't happen like that. They happen over a period of time, and they also don't happen to all of the organisms within a species. It's or even all the species within a biosphere. It's a very complex, meandering, and fluctuating thing that is based on gradual change through external and internal triggers, which work together. Now, I could go back to the beginning of these insights and say, yeah, I was a little kid. So that's really where it began for me. And it's probably where it began for lots of you as well. You had fleeting insights, strange notions that you were different than everyone else. The world around you didn't really make a lot of sense. You were drawn to the fantastical and the mystical, not necessarily things like magic or esoteric subjects, but you may have been drawn to things like sci-fi and horror and fantasy and all these kinds of things. And yet you never questioned or asked why. Why were you drawn to these things? Why did such concepts flow and meander throughout your consciousness when you lived in what your education system and the prevailing Abrahamic culture told you was a solid fixed world of specific rights and conventions that were inflexible? The laws of science in terms of fixed laws of this and that were applied to you in your life, and yet you still were drawn to superheroes, other kinds of creatures, fantasy, UFOs, ghosts, and everything else. It was almost as if you said knew somehow that there was more to this than others, and even if you didn't believe in it, you might find that your interest in it was stronger than it was with others. So I could go back to that and say it began with that. But it doesn't really, because, well, it does, but then it grew throughout my life. There was times where I went to work in the corporate world or just became and played the normie game, tried to be an atheist for about 15 minutes before I realized that wasn't going to work, and so on. And the insights were still coming, but not to the same degree. I'd say it really began for me about 2008, 2009. I started painting, and the paintings started to reveal themselves as prophecies. They were streams of consciousness that seemed to come true. And so I went back into the world in this kind of esoteric world of insights, and from that, the book Puzzling People came out of my head, which is actually a very esoteric book if you read it now, and purposely so. And that kind of gave me a public voice. And from that point on, I've used this to try and say, look, I don't live in a fixed, solid world. Although it's real and it does exist, there's other exterior impacts which are affecting this that are connected with the environment, the cosmos, human consciousness, and human psychology, and it's all ultimately based and rooted upon our nervous system and how our nervous system interacts with this matrix of this five sense reality construct, this reality tunnel that we're that use Robert Anton Wilson's is based around us. It's totally true what Terence McKenna said: if the artist can't find the way, then no one can. Now, I suppose even back in the 90s, when I was kind of doing my normie corporate kind of thing, I was still reading articles in Wired magazines dealing with these kinds of things. And I was fascinated by hackers, and the hackers and the chaos magic thing, which I'd been looking into previous to that, seemed very similar at that time, the hacking and the chaos magic thing. And that eventually led to the internet and the kind of world we live in now, where we're battling angels and demons on the internet, as well as trying to find our own path. We're becoming pathfinders amongst ourselves. Along the way, there are all kinds of diversions. I remember James Swaggart once saying to me, he says, Thomas, you're about one of the few people with a name in alt media that I know is completely sincere. Now, and I said, what do you mean by that? He says, I can interview you or talk to you in a pub about pay. And James was a very insightful scholar. He really read books and took notes and referenced them. And he said, I could talk to you about page 68 of what you wrote in Walpurgis Night, or page 115 of what you wrote in the Druid Code. And you can have a conversation for 2 hours about the passage, or the what you wrote in there, because it's obvious it comes from the heart, and it's not something that you made up, and it's something you've thought deeply about. And he says, I've had numerous people I've interviewed on Capricorn Radio, and I'm saying this now because James is out of the scene, and it's not disrespectful to James or any of his guests or anyone on that scene. I'm just saying this is what he told me. And he said, I came to the conclusion that a lot of these people who would suddenly be flash in the pans, whether they were dealing with UFOs or aliens or ancient sites and then vanished, were probably Freemasons to push people off the scent of the real things. He said, I'd read their book that they were supposedly have read, and I would say, on page 39 you said this, and the guy would, or the person he was interviewing, who would be this flash in the pan, who'd get on a big publisher and then vanish, would just go reading from the blurb of the book and couldn't go into an in-depth conversation. And then he said, that's when I realized a lot of these fellows were Freemasons, and they were sent out there to destroy the path of true knowledge. And he goes, and that's why they get big publishing deals and fellas like you and I don't. And he was absolutely right about that. You look even in the alternative scene, everything from the 9/11 truth to everything. There's been all kinds of sensational flash in the pans who came out of nowhere with their theories, which took off like wildfire, and then we don't hear from them ever again. And they are interlopers that were been sent out to destroy the rest of us who were trying to figure out what was really going on. And you see that and you see how messianic and evangelical their followers become. I mean, the flat earth being the most obvious thing of this. Now, the flat earthers now are behaving like Jehovah's Witnesses and evangelical types. They're not even interested in debate anymore. What they do, or even talking about it, is that they just share scripture of videos on YouTube in order to try and find more parishioners for their masses and their religious order, the flat earth religious order. That's all it is at this point, and it always was from the beginning. That was definitely a psyop. So was like the Big Mountains thing. That Big Mountains video shows up overnight, the Big Trees video. Next day it has something like 400,000 views. And all the same flat earthers and the impulsive, easily led truthers are believing it completely because of repetitive statements and neuro-linguistic programming language used in this, and in other things too. Remember, dustification, dustification, dustification. Where's she gone? Now, I'm still here after all the After 10 years I'm still here, after all the smear campaigns, after all the oddballs, weirdos, shitbags, and all the other shit I had to deal with, as well as all the wonderful accolades, wonderful people I've met, and everyone else. I'm still here. I'm here for the long run because I'm not a flash in the pan Freemason led out there, led to lead you down a fucking bullshit path. I don't lie to you about the things that I've researched. Now, I've made mistakes, like all people have, and I fully accept that because it's part of a growing process. But I'm not an academic, I'm not a scientist. What you get from me is what I've always been, an artist. Okay, that's what you get from me. That's what you get from me. And this is all based on the same. When I put these videos out here and put things like this out here, it's exactly the same as the discussions that took place inside the symposiums in ancient Greece or the forum in ancient Rome, and where these pagans people sat around and talked about things and threw insights out there, things they derived from the oracles of the dreams or insights, eureka moments, noetics, and eventually these became the building blocks of all the sciences we have today. And they were built upon the idea that this comes from somewhere else that's not derived within us. It's not forked out in a lab coat or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that kind of science. That's for the minutiae of the stuff, but that was originally derived from the noetic insights of the pagan ancient symposiums of Greece and Rome. And other people, we even find that the Etruscans and the Celts and the Egyptians and everyone else in ancient Chinese had their own versions of this too. And then the processes come take over, and the formulas and the committees and all that take over. But the initial insight is always from somewhere else. Always from somewhere else. Every single science today was rooted in the vision of a shaman. No exceptions. That includes music and everything else. Now, so that's what this discourse on these videos have been, both the kind of prosaic ones that are taking place on the Thomas Sheridan channel, and also what's going on here in a more esoteric sense within the open source occult TV channel. And then it all kind of amalgamates into a general discussion on places like Facebook and in the comment sections of these videos. So you've been amazing, leaving amazing comments here. Now, in that spirit, so to speak, this is not a thing like an end time is coming, a doomsday is coming. I'm not a Christian. I don't subscribe to revelations and the idea there's going to be something like that. I'm a pagan and I subscribe to the concept of changes and shifts in cycles, just like you have in nature, just like you have in cosmology, just like you have in your personal life. That it all goes through cycles. There's no terminal moment except the ultimate death, and then the ultimate death becomes the beginning of a new cycle and a new life. So there are no terminal moments as such. That is Christian thinking, Abrahamic thinking. And that's why you had things like the flat earth. It was the last stand of Abraham. It was the absolute belief that they would be somehow proven right and that the earth was flat. And that's why they go into biblical thinking. And you cannot reason or talk with them, even if you try and be polite with them. They can't even talk about any other subject. They're fanatics. They're classic zealots in the Abrahamic sense. And they're doing a horrific disservice to the alternative world because they're saying that they are scientifically motivated. I'm not saying I'm scientifically motivated. I'm motivated by dreams and oracles and consciousness. And I'm perfectly comfortable and okay with saying that because I'm not going to challenge any scientist. I'm not going to be one of these people that will say, well, if I was invited to a committee of scientists and say, can you prove your beliefs against mine? I would go, no. And they go, why? Because they won't stand up. No, because they cannot be quantified against the scientific process. And therefore, you would be at an advantage and I would be at a disadvantage. So that's what this is really all about. And I would say, and at the same time too, I respect your science and I'm a great fan of it and I'm glad it exists because it opens up oracles in different ways for me and it grounds things and so on. So that's the world I'm coming from. That's where I've been for the last 10 years and that's where I'll be for the rest of my life. And so, like, if you read my books, particularly Valpurgis Nights, Sorcery and the Druid Code, you would see that a lot of the things I'm talking about now today, and even right back to Puzzling People, are all in there. They're all in there. So there's been no change in trajectory in terms of my own knowledge path. And I'm not looking to be a prophet. I'm not looking to be anything like that because I know I'm not. I have no more insights than any of you guys. I'm just good at putting it into language that helps me understand it more. And therefore, by sharing that language in the way, the framework in which I've learned to discover it and put it together, maybe it can help you find your own model of the universe. And that's all I've ever been about. No, nothing else like that. I don't do rules, mandates, or anything like this. Now, the thing is that just a regular person. That's all. I'm a regular Irish, nothing else. But uh, I'm not shy about sharing my opinions and telling people how I feel. So that's probably, if I was one way different, or not unique, but like if that's one attribute I have, I'm a Mountie Paddy, and that's kind of helped me in many ways. Now, and being from Dublin, I have a good command of the English language, and so I carry that Joycean, Oscar Wilde, Samuel Beckett culture within me, and this is a very. I'm blessed that I come from a city that produces people who've been very good at communicating the fantastical to everybody. So, with that in mind, okay, as you've been seeing, we are in the, and this is not. I'll try and credit people who've added to this mix as we go along. So, it really began for me when two of my friends, about a couple of years ago, must be about 3, 4 years ago now, walked into my studio and said, "Have you seen the David Bowie video for Black Star?" At the same time, I was starting to heavily read Lovecraft again. And they showed me the Black Star video on their iPhone, and all three of us immediately knew there was something amazing going on here. And they said something like, all the things you talk about are in, and I'm not talking about online, but we have conversations every Saturday and stuff, like we're having tea and coffee. And they say, all the things that you've talked about over the years are in this video. And the final scene of the video, where a Lovecraftian type old one is basically tormenting the vagrant hobo Christ on the cross. And the video itself is a mass. It's the final mass of the space druid Bowie, and his his attainment of godhood before he moved on to the next reality. And he talks us through the avatar. It's basically using the avatar of Major Tom with all these Lovecraftian elements. And the people seem to be all, I knew that we all knew there was something amazing about that. Of course, all the lunatic Christians, conspiracy types all start saying it's about the devil worship and all this kind of thing. But for the rest of us, we didn't particularly, like, I can always tell people who are clued in alternative thinkers. They look at a video like that and go, that's really interesting, but they don't apply an absolute definite meaning to it. This is why you should stay away from sites like Vigilant Citizen and all the kind of places. They actually put an absolute meaning on things, and it's all lies. It's all Abrahamic nonsense. But so that's due to my consciousness, and then life went on, and things happened, and then before, I think it was whenever it happened, 2019, the Anuma Uma thing happened, and immediately that just, I knew there was some kind of chaos paganism thing happening there. And I latched onto that, to many people's surprise. The video is down this website here. And I performed what could be a mass of an Uma on this channel, where I put music into it and made a video that was very different. And I knew that that thing represented something big. So, backdating everything, okay? Backdating everything. This is not that was the Bowie thing, then the Uma, then let's leave it at that, okay? So I go to Sri Lanka. I have incredibly spiritual experience there. It completely changed me as a person. And then I go back on with my life and my work and stuff like that. So let's throw in a timeline that's not necessarily all been discovered at the time, but has been discovered now, or in the last recent times, okay? So a Sri Lankan scientist in November 2019 predicted, using this panspermia hypothesis, that things, microorganisms and organisms even, arrive on comets. Predicted that in eastern China, following the explosion of a large meteor over eastern China, that a new virus would appear that would lead to a pandemic, And sure enough, the what's being known now as the COVID-19 virus started showing up in China. Okay, that's the first thing. The article, he also used the idea that the octopus, like octopus eggs, also because not the octopus is nothing like any other animal on this earth. That the octopus eggs, or DNA at the very least, came on a comet or a meteor, so they're aliens. Now, at that time, around then, I started to get really big into Lovecraft, well, I was, and then the idea of the octopus. And you saw my videos where I said the octopus should be a new animal totem of the animism within this chaos paganism. I made a video on chaos paganism, and I created a logo or a seal for it that was based on the eye of an octopus with four radiating uh, arms. So if you had two eyes, you had eight, so eight legs, and a, looking like a comet from as seen from the front in a telescope, like a comet coming straight on. Again, that was just purely noetics. I just thought that'd be a neat thing based on my heavy research into Lovecraft and the idea of scientific mysticism, which was expressed in the documentary Liber Providence, which came out around the same time that this comet exploded. So therefore, you have me creating a work of art, both a logo and a film. At the same time, a Sri Lankan scientist has predicted that a virus or a pandemic would arrive on a comet which exploded over eastern China in November 2019. Okay. Right around that time, I said to people, start when you go by the ocean, start venerating octopuses and things, and in that, think about them, think about their being different and all this kind of thing. And a lot of followers on my Facebook page all started doing that. Suddenly, the internet exploded, not just Facebook, but everywhere, with articles about how intelligent octopuses are, how they're different than all other animals on this earth, how we shouldn't farm them because it's like it's farming an animal of a very high level of intelligence and consciousness, how we shouldn't we should pay more attention to how intelligent they are, how they really do run this earth, because they live in the oceans, and on this planet there's far more ocean than there is land, so therefore the ones who are holding the most territory at the moment are the octopuses. And there are lots of articles about them coming ashore, amazing things they could do to solve puzzles and everything. And octopus consciousness was everywhere by the time we got to Christmas. Then, then following this, the early days of the stories after Christmas of a virus in China started filtering out, and like all the other viruses, we didn't take it seriously. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying it was just how it started in the public at first. Even the liberal press were saying you shouldn't, don't get too mad about it. We've been down this road with SARS and other things in the past. So at the same time this is going on, octopus consciousness is all over the place. Okay, now then the lockdowns, the pandemics begin and everything, and we all start having intense dreams. And those of us who are, locked down are not being bothered by it. It's becoming like a time of beautiful, almost spiritual sensations. We're not even bored. And so I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. There's no such thing as coincidence. And so therefore, we find ourselves in a real life sci-fi movie. We can't move, we can't go anywhere. There is an alien virus that's, you know, holding the human race prisoner in their own homes. We can't fly. If you were to exchange the the Corona-19 virus with an alien space person, right, from outer space, we would be exactly the same thing as now as if they declared war on us. We're locked in our homes, we can't fly. Because essentially, like, why have the trouble of shooting an aircraft out of the sky when it can just kill the pilot and it can crash, this kind of thing. And we're basically living like we're living in a war zone. And we have the likes of Trump saying things like we are at war with an invisible enemy. Now, a friend of mine on Facebook, Jacqueline, she just pointed out today that you die from octopus venom the same way you die from coronavirus. It's exactly the same. You die of respiratory problems, cause you're unable to breathe, and it destroys your immune system, so you cannot fight the virus, cannot fight the poison. You die exactly the same way of an octopus bite venom as you die from a coronavirus. Now, even the articles that are coming out during this time that octopuses were organizing. Octopuses were always known as solitary creatures, but yet a study in Capri in Italy showed that for some reason out of the blue recently, octopuses have started teaming up and working in teams to attack much larger, much more powerful animals. This had never been observed in nature before. And other things like this are happening. It's almost as if the octopus is now. I know I spoke to the gin and things the other day, but that's again, it could still tie into all this. Perhaps, like we've been dealing with gin consciousness through all the wars in the Middle East, and now we're shifting to a war with basically wars with China. And these wars with China have a new rules of engagement, and maybe it's continued on from that. Again, I'm throwing all the stuff out here with the hope that all of us, not me, I am not the leader of a church. I'm just one guy shouting in the crowd, waiting for someone to shout back in the hope that I can glue my reality model on all this together. And I hope you're doing the same thing too. And yeah, so, we have that. We have the connection between panspermia and comets. And then lo and behold, we are told that endless amounts of comets and asteroids, and even a comet called C19, are due to reach the Earth at around the same time that this is about to end. This is about to end, right? April 30th, between the April 30th Valpurgis Beltane all the way through to mid to end May. Now, you could say something like the establishment know all the things that I'm talking about, and they live by the same rules. Not impossible considering Freemasonry. Not unlikely considering that, someone like Wood Lovecraft. Where did he get it from? Well, he said he got it from dreams, but his grandfather, Whipple Phillips Lovecraft, was also a very high-ranking Freemason who had insights and was very close to the boy before he died. Now, so there's, is this what they really know, that the very deep ends of these Masonic lodges? I suspect they do, and these gives them an edge. And now it's our time for us to get our edge. But perhaps I'm going to throw ideas out here, right? Perhaps the antibodies to the ability to have immunity is coming with this comet Atlas, and this is the real reason it broke up. The fragments of so on, DNA or whatever, is coming down in that to heal us. Is this what they know? Is it another? Is it going to get worse? Is another? We see. I'm just throwing this out here to see what would happen. But I think when you start viewing the world and reality in these terms, like the Terence McKenna way, if the artist can't find a way, the way cannot be found. We're looking at these. We're looking at things that are so fantastical, but yet, if someone told you this time last year you would be locked down like this right now, would you have believed them? Life is very, very strange and amazing, my friends. Now, or is this just a heralding of the ability of the immune system to beat it? Are the octopuses on our side? Did they draw the Comet Atlas in, to deal with this initial meteorite that exploded over eastern China? It's all there for the asking. And my life right now, and I'm sure for many of yous right now, aside from the oracles of the dream world, which are unbelievable right now, how many of you are having incredible coincidences and happenstances? For instance, last night I finally got around to watching the movie The Color Out of Space, and I was quite worried about this film because I thought that it would it would just make a mockery of Lovecraft's work, by some woke directors immediately attacking his racism, this nonsense, and all this crap you hear from these new generation of SJW Lovecraftian followers have all vanished. The film, I couldn't believe it. I was watching it. If you haven't seen it, basically, uh, it was written by someone who clearly had a very strong understanding of the occult, because it begins with a girl who's doing a Wiccan ritual, and how many years I've been telling you that the Wiccans have got it all wrong. It will come true for them, but in the wrong way, in the completely wrong way, in the poetic manner. And the color out of space is essentially a virus. It was just a color out of space that caused mutations and changes, but also brought about wisdom. And the thing in my Lever Providence documentary that I stressed over and over again, that the old ones are the old ones and the rest of the Lovecraftian mythos, the beings, are not out to kill human beings. They're just nature doing its nature thing, and it's our reaction to the strange nature of these foreign interdimensional and extraterrestrial gods. Sorry, extraterrestrial gods that are seen through interdimensional oracles such as dreams and insights. Again, read the Call of Cthulhu. The call is what I'm talking about. This is the Call of Corona. I could easily entitle this video. And so the film ends, and I said, "Well, that was absolutely fantastic." And I went on Facebook last night, 9 out of 10, and lo and behold, through a friend in England, who was tagged onto the discussion, but only the woman who was the esoteric consultant and one of the writers of the movie. So I lightheartedly said, to mention that the Simon Necronomicon was probably not the one to show in the film because it's a makey uppy thing, and she agreed. Yeah, yeah, it's true, but probably because it's so well known and everything, and look, that cover has that kind of edgy thing that teenage occultists love, which would have drawn the young girl to it. And so, I was bang on right when the film was over, and it's just obviously someone with an occult foundation was involved in the making of this film. And there, lo and behold, within 5 minutes of me saying that, the actual person who was involved, a woman called Amanda, in the film, it contacts me on my Facebook wall to. There we go. So it's almost like, it's like we're knowing each other now. We're starting to understand each other, those of us in these things. And again, nothing is happenstance, nothing is coincidence, but at the same time, everything is there for observation. And so, more than ever, when I say something is coming in the title of this video, and I hope you're sharing these videos around, because YouTube is doing everything to destroy me right now. I cannot put any ads on through a video anymore, so I'm getting nothing from the ad revenue. They're not showing up at the moment they're published. They're hard to find. So if you can do anything to help me get this stuff out here, please do, because this is far more important than just about anything else, because this is the opportunity we're going to get to help people who are like us find us. I was talking to my friend Peter today, an artist I met in Manchester. There's some beautiful paintings of octopuses and stuff lately, and we now realise why we met each other. We were meant to. It's like Terence McKenna again said, "Go find the others." And that's we're finding the others. So and here I am with a chance for us to all find each other, not me, but each other and our own path. And YouTube is deliberately suppressing it. So make of that what you will. So anything you can do to share this around, and never, never have fixity of outcome, because no magician worth their salt will ever believe they're going to get exactly what their conjurations intend. And same with an artist. An artist just begins with, like, fuzzy, maybe something in the mind where the magical process begins, and then by the time it's completed on canvas and paper, it's usually almost always very, very different than what the initial concept that ran around in their head to begin with, but ultimately still following a trajectory. And that's how a magical process works. You will get what you want in the end, but not exactly as you wanted. And that's what the story of the film. The girl did escape in the end. Excuse me, in the colors out of space. And here we are living with the corona out of space, the color out of space. Prepare yourself for, I won't say upgrade, because that's again Christian orientated. That becomes being cleaned of original sin. Prepare yourself for the new, and do nothing except observe. And I can guarantee you, you will be living in a different world in a year from now that you are right now, as you were a different world as you were a year from now, from right now. Not because some aliens are coming, even though the skies are filled with UFOs right now. I mean, like aliens in the kind of the day the earth stood still type thing. That the sky is full of meters and UFOs and other strange lights at the moment always appear at times like this. All your previous prejudices, and even the grey aliens. What do the grey aliens look like? They look Chinese. And another friend of mine, Stephen, even showed me today, look at the opening sequence of the movie Flash Gordon. And Ming, who looks Chinese, is looking at the earth and causing calamities through a telescope or periscope that has the same look as the chaos paganism seal or sigil that I designed. I won't say it's all coming together, but the doors are opening. The peering into the abyss is developing clarity. The brushstrokes of consciousness are forming images. And if you miss out on this by being an evangelical flat earther, or caught up in the elites are going to destroy us, or the elites are going to be all arrested with sealed indictments, you're missing the point completely. You're missing the opportunity to move on with this cycle. Is this really why all the doctors and nurses are all clapping and acting very strange and making music videos? What's that all about? Is this really why people are coming out and clapping and acting very, very strange? What theatre, what performance are they clapping? Subconsciously, they're there. We know they're there for a different reason than the actual stated reason. Remember the 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 pandemic may be liberating us in many ways. The conscious pandemic, rather than COVID-19 being a curse, it may very well be a blessing. And I know it's been for me, and I'm not to put down families who are suffering because relatives died and stuff. There's nothing like that. It's opened up portals and insights into my work that were floating around there, that didn't have the resolved and accurate brushstrokes, and now they're forming into a picture. But what's that picture of? I still don't know, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it formed. And so this is the time to not be distracted or have fixity of purpose. This is the time to allow the observations that you behold to meander and swirl through your consciousness, because I've got news for you. Those of you who have been waiting for something to happen, it's happening. It's happening right now. But I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. And anyone who says they know what it is, for sure, stay the hell away from them. Sit back. You've got a front row seat to the greatest show that anyone on this planet could ever hope to behold. Thank you very much.